right, 7:01. So call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Silver City to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if we could have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Clemens? Commissioner Seibel?
Here.
Commissioner Kirby?
Here.
Commissioner Lawson?
Here.
Commissioner Larman?
Here. All right, approval of agenda. And I take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I so move.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. We've got the approval of the minutes of the June 4th, 2013 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? All right, entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes as presented of the Tuesday, January 4th meeting.
Very good. Motion by John Lawson. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. And motion carries. All right, we've got no old business on the agenda tonight, which brings us to public hearings. And open public hearing ZC 13-04, a request for a map amendment, zone change, from a residential A zone to commercial for attractive land addressed as 3201 Ridge Loop Drive in Silver City. Property is described as North Silver Heights Subdivision, Unit 3, Lot 3. And do a quick rundown of how this is going to work. Winging this because I don't have the cheat sheet that our real chair has. But basically the commission here will be the hearing body, and I'll be the hearing officer as the chair this evening. We'll ask anyone that's interested in testifying in the hearing tonight to stand and be sworn in just a moment. And everyone will have an opportunity to testify, but only if they're sworn in. It'll begin with a presentation from staff of the case, and then we'll have an opportunity to hear from the applicant, and then after the applicant's case, then we'll hear testimony for or against the case from anyone that's interested. So, I guess to get things started, would anyone interested in testifying in this case, please rise and join us here at the podium to be sworn in.
Please repeat after me. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Jim Coates.
I, Richard Steinzig,
Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that the testimony I am about to give
that the testimony I'm about to give
that the testimony I'm about to give
will be the whole truth, the truth and whole truth,
the truth and whole truth,
the truth and whole truth,
nothing but the truth on penalty of perjury.
nothing but the truth on penalty of perjury.
nothing but the truth on penalty of perjury.
Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Coates, would you like to give us the staff presentation?
I'm going to sit over here because of the microphone. Take care of this. I want to apologize to the commission. I sent you the staff report last week or whenever, but I neglected to send you the full packet, which includes the application and the departmental review sheet, that sort of thing, and you have that on your desk this evening. But hopefully the staff report was fairly explanatory. What we have tonight is a request for an amendment zone change for the structure or the property at 3201 Ridge Loop Road, and the request is for changing it from residential A to commercial. Ridge Loop Road is, or the subject property actually lies in an area of the Ridge Loop Road, at the corner of Ridge Loop Road and 32nd Street. The little yellow piece there. And the whole neighborhood is variedly zoned with some residential A and some commercial. This is Pinos Altos Road or Highway 15. This is 32nd Street. This area right here is the hospital. There's several places, several commercial properties along there. It's a medical, educational, institutional, and residential corridor along 32nd. This is the hospital. The subject property here is on the northwest corner of Ridge Loop Road. Ridge Loop Road is a short dead-end road that ends just beyond these two houses. There are 4 structures on Ridge Loop Road, all of which were originally built as residences. It was all residential A when it was first zoned back in 1960, I believe. And the 2 houses here are still residential A, and this property is commercial. Since the original residential A was zoned in '60, the hospital property was rezoned in 1981. Piece down here was rezoned in the '90s. This property here directly across the street from the subject property was rezoned in 1998 to commercial. So on Ridge Loop Road, there's 1 commercial and 3 residential A properties existing right now, one of which is the subject property. Here's the subject property. Directly behind the subject property that's on 32nd, within the major hospital campus, these 3 structures are apartments that were built for HUD housing, subsidized housing, and they were basically sponsored by LifeQuest when they were built, so they're built for disabled people. There are 2 duplexes and a single unit. This property is owned by the hospital now, and administrative office, the foundation office, and then there's the hospital campus, the major hospital campus here. This is that is a residence, and then over here we had started getting into the medical, and down the other direction we have medical as well. Dentist office, right, and on the north side is a church and a firehouse. So you can see that here's medical or dental, medical, church, firehouse. This is Ridge Crest Road. That's residential. It's a little small housing development right here, but a lot of it is commercial. And this is the property at 3201 Ridge Loop Road, the subject property, looking from the center of the street. It was built as a residence. This is Ridge Loop Road on the subject property. There's a residence here. There's a residence over here, but is being used as offices for firstborn, and then there's another residence up here. This is from the subject property looking west. These are the apartment units, the hospital campus back here, all the way back to the high school. So it's an institutional medical corridor for the most part. We're asking that the applicant is asking that the property be rezoned to commercial to fit in with its adjacent property. And I can show you that, here's the adjacent properties. We looked at a light commercial, which would be a new zoning that came in 2010, or we could keep it as commercial and then rezone the entire area to a new zone later. The light commercial was basically designed for that medical corridor where there's less dense than downtown historic, less heavy use than the highway commercial, so that it's kind of a mid-level, more for professional areas. The light commercial is for government, financial establishment, professional, medical facilities, and higher density residential dwellings. So rather than going into a new zone there and having it a spot zone with just one little piece of property with the new zone, we thought it would be better to use the interim commercial zoning, because that allows it to continue to be exactly what the rest of the neighborhood other than the residential is. The interesting part of this rezoning request is the property has been used as a physician's office for 30 years. It was being used under the old zoning. It was allowed that physicians' offices could be in residential A zoning. And that was just one of the parameters or the uses, allowed uses within residential. And so when the owner purchased the property, the hospital had just been rezoned, and it became a doctor's office in a residential area, which was perfectly allowed. Now, since 1999, the zoning has changed, and it's not an allowed use in residential A to have a physician's office. But it's been a physician's office for 30 years, so it is actually a non-conforming use as it is right now. Dr. Steinzig, the applicant, closed his office in February of 2013, this year. If it stays closed and does not, if it does not reopen as a medical office within a year, then he loses the non-conforming use, and it would have to revert back to an allowed use within residential A. For the time being, it could stay a physician's office under the non-conforming use for as long as it's used as a physician's office, unless it's closed for a year or more than a year. So the applicant came to us and said, how can I keep this as a physician's office, being right next to the hospital, being in a medical corridor, and still be within the zoning requirements and not have to worry about that non-conforming use? And so he asked if he could rezone to commercial, which is the other use of the properties within that area other than the residential A. This property is directly across from the applicant's property, and it was, like I said, rezoned to commercial in 1998, and it's owned by the hospital. A lot of the property that has been rezoned from residential A to commercial is owned by the hospital on that side of the road. There's off-street parking that the owner developed for his physician's clinic, and that would still be there if the zoning was changed to commercial. This is kind of the history of the property. It was an allowed use, physician's office was an allowed use from 1960 to 1999. 1960 being when the first zones were established. 1999 was when the land use code changed to not allow physician's offices in residential A any longer. Though the property was used as a physician's office from 1983 until February of 2013. The 1999 land use code no longer allowed professional offices or transitional uses in the residential A zone, thus making the physician's office a non-conforming use, which runs with the land as long as it stays as a physician's office. And it was closed in 2013. To recommend to the council that the change in zoning occurs, the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to find one of the following 7. Would the chair and the commission like me to read those findings? Or they will be in the record in a written form otherwise?
The only challenge I can see is from a cheat sheet perspective for the commission. Ordinarily, we have your whole presentation in our packet. Tonight, we don't. So we don't have that in writing for us to pick one of those without shuffling through our book, which we could do.
Okay.
So just so everyone is aware that we're going to
It is in the staff report that you were sent.
Okay. Beautiful.
But I will certainly read them if that's your pleasure.
I don't think that's necessary unless...
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We know them by heart.
Should.
And it's our opinion that any one of 4 of the findings could meet a recommendation for the change. It would be findings 1, it's in substantial compliance with the town's comprehensive plan. The change would not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan, and the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare, and will promote the original purposes of the land use code, and the proposed amendment provides additional flexibility in meeting the objectives of the land use code without lowering the standards of the land use code. So, if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to try and answer them.
I have a question.
Sure.
Or 2. So if we made this change, could it be used as a residence?
Probably not. Not a single-family residence. Unless it was a business, let's say a home business can be used. So if somebody had a home business that they wanted to put in there, they could live there and use it as a residence and a business.
And so, since the business was closed, what is the reason for wanting it to still be zoned for a business if the business isn't there?
My understanding from the applicant is that he would like to sell it, and that he has a potentially interested buyer that would like to keep it a physician's office.
And that's a question we can ask of
You
the
can ask the
applicant
applicant.
in just a second. Yeah. Anyone else? I've got one of those, I don't know, sort of touchy questions I'm famous for. So it is kind of weird to rezone something to this interim zoning category that we're supposed to be getting rid of. I understand the reasoning for doing that. Is there any kind of timeline, though, for when we might look at rezoning this area, sort of going along with that vision that we put forth there in the new land use code?
I can't give you a specific timeline, but because this is our first application for a rezone in that area, it's going to push the priority of that bigger rezone up. But we didn't want to hold up this application by having to go out to everyone in the entire area that we might want to consider rezoning into the light commercial or the commercial light, because that takes a lot more effort, and we wanted the applicant to have his day before you sooner than that would be.
We could have gotten Dr. Stanzik to help us, though. He's got all this time on his hands now, but with retirement and all, right?
Making a joke about how much time you have.
So, any other questions for staff? All right, we'll move on to the applicant. Dr. Stanzik, if you'd like to join us at the podium and make your case. One thing I will ask you for is if you would give us some help with these findings that we have to make. We're required to find one of these findings, and would appreciate it if in your case you would give us some evidence for how we might meet at least one of the findings that's required of us.
A lot of the problem is related to the changes in the zoning and my desire to conform to the new regulations. I was told that I could always practice there as a physician. We used the term I was grandfathered in, even though the zoning changed. But when I closed my office and I was going to put the building for sale or lease to, say, another physician, the other physician wanted to be assured that, I use the word kosher, it would be applicable, that it would be up to date. And as it turns out, I have talked to a realtor, and the realtor, when I was going to try to sell it, that was the first thing they asked, how is it zoned? And I said, what does it matter? I've always practiced there. And they said, yes, but maybe a new person wouldn't be allowed to practice there as a doctor or a dentist. And that would limit me to renting it or selling it as a residence, which actually would clutter the street up more. If family or a group of people live there. Now it's essentially 9 to 5, closed on the weekends, and the street is open. But I have a nurse, when we say a physician's office, we want to use the term medical office because there are nurse practitioners. In actuality, I have a nurse practitioner who is leasing it now. And she's going to be a practitioner of, a nurse practitioner, mainly women and children. And she asked me how it was zoned. And I went through this and said, well, I've always practiced here. And she says, well, they give me trouble. I said, well, you're my tenant, and, it just would clarify things if we had it zoned commercially. And I believe I'm shooting myself in the foot because I think my taxes would go up if it's zoned commercially. Is that?
It's more the use rather than the zone.
But that's just the background. I can't think of anything else. I would be content to just leave it residential if there were a guarantee that a new tenant, medical, would not have any problem conforming. Did I say that right? Conforming? With the zoning. Please ask a question so I can frame it in.
Vita, you had a question earlier. You want to throw that out again?
Well, I think I got it answered.
Okay. You happy with that? Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
It's all pretty straightforward.
He hasn't addressed that.
Yeah, we do have these findings up here, and it is something that I have to ask you to do if you would pick and justify one of those findings for us so that we may cite it in our decision. It's a requirement of how these things work.
The proposed amendment will not adversely affect that one there.
The impact of public health, safety, and all of that.
Number 4, the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare, and will promote the original purpose of the land use code.
And can you tell us why, in your opinion?
Well, there will be no dangerous structures built on it. There will be no unnecessary traffic or parking because of this. Probably less so. And the maintenance, you know, it will be kept neat, it will be kept tidy. I sweep the sidewalk myself. I pick up the peaches from the peach tree. The sewers drain down the back and out to 32nd Street, not up anymore to the Ridge Loop. And I just think that with a commercial zoning, you get a better class of renter, a better class of leaser, or if I sell it, a better class of purchaser if it's zoned commercial, because I would only sell it to a doctor or a dentist or a nurse practitioner. I mean, I wouldn't, sell it to a commercial business.
Thank you, Dr. Stanzik. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question for you or for staff, but I guess if it's rezoned, although you say you wouldn't sell it to certain commercial enterprises, you could sell it to any commercial enterprise, but I guess that's true of everything else around there that's commercial also.
That's true. If it's rezoned commercial, it's like everything else in that area. It could be used commercially. I'd like, if you're willing to listen, the finding number 4, for the staff to be able to present that as a potential finding, or our opinion, it was used for 30 years as a physician's office. The original land use code allowed it to be used as a physician's office, so it's certainly not going to impact the public health, safety, or general welfare any more than it already did. I mean, it's not going to be adverse. It's not going to adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare any more than it was before.
Well, you don't know that it would remain a physician's office. It could be anything commercial.
It could be anything commercial.
However,
Anything that's allowed by a commercial.
By the commercial zone.
as long as I own it, I can tell you that it's going to stay as a medical office, nurse practitioner.
Yeah, that's not really what we're,
Right, I understand that.
And I think this highlights again why it's a good thing that the new land use code has these sort of finer distinctions in terms of commercial zoning, and why it's important that we should move forward with getting those in place so that those protections can be realized for the citizens of the community.
From the public participation perspective, we did the 300-foot circle around the property. We heard from no neighbor within the circle that was written the letter to and that responded. Dr. Steinzig also contacted those 300 people, and I think my understanding is he talked with a couple people directly that were his direct neighbors, and there was no problem with the direct neighbors for it to change. The property directly across the street has been a commercial piece of property for the last 15 years, and there's not been a problem there. We did have one person come into the office and ask us some questions about it, but it was from having seen the sign. And we answered the question and said, okay. And there was no other concerns expressed. So, and the questions that were asked was, well, is that going to increase traffic on that street? And all we could say, no more than it was already. So, I mean, because it had been used for 30 years as a physician's office.
Right. Any other questions from the commission? Okay.
No questions.
All right, we don't have anyone sworn in. Anyone from the audience that wants to testify for or against? All right. So that completes the case. Is the commission prepared to make a motion?
Well, I was going to make a comment before.
Okay.
I voted about it. I just, seems like a very appropriate place for office, whether it's medical or medical related or something similar. And there are two things that I particularly like about it. It removes an intrusion of residential into the commercial zone, reduces the irregularity of the boundary between the commercial zone and the residential zone. And it eliminates what's essentially a spot zone of the little place across the street. So I think all around it's good planning.
And may I make a comment? Waterman's comment. We thought of you and the concerns that we all have about the spot zoning, which two things we wanted to make sure that would fit within a non-spot, and that's one of the reasons why we chose not to go with the new light commercial, because that would have created a spot right in the middle of all this other that we could eventually change the whole thing at one time. So.
On the other hand, it would create a spot of ugliness that would get on everyone's nerves and lead us to do what we ought to be doing anyway more quickly. So there is that argument to be made for it. All right. Motion.
My other comment is I concur with the staff's analysis. I move to approve zoning request ZC 13-04, based upon the findings that the proposed amendment is in substantial compliance with the town's comprehensive plan, that the proposed amendment will not adversely affect the implementation of the goals and policies of the town's comprehensive plan, and the proposed amendment will not adversely impact the public health, safety, or general welfare, and will promote the original purposes of the land use code, and that the proposed amendment provides additional flexibility in meeting the objectives of this land use code without lowering the standards of the land use code.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
All right. Thank you, John. Any discussion on the motion? All right. There's a motion and a second to approve zone change ZC 13-04. It's a request for a map amendment zone change from residential A zone to commercial for attractive land addressed as 3201 Ridge Loop Drive in Silver City, also described as North Silver Heights Subdivision, Unit 3, Lot 3, with the findings 1, 2, 4, and 7 to be found met. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye?
Just require a roll call.
Oh, that's right. It does. Thank you.
Commissioner Waterman?
Yes.
Commissioner Seibel?
Yes.
Commissioner Furby?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawson?
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. And since that's a zone change, that's actually a recommendation to the town council, so the council will actually have the final say on the amendment of the zone map. And do we know when that'll be scheduled to go before the council?
If it's accepted on the agenda, it will be the second meeting in September.
Second meeting in September.
That gives enough time to do all the public notification, et cetera, to make sure that it gets to the council.
Okay, so provided they don't move the meeting, that'd be September 24th.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Santic. All right, we have no community forum on the agenda tonight, so that brings us to reports from staff.
Well, I have one suggestion that the commission may want to consider. Is everyone happy with having the meeting at 7, or would you prefer to move it to 6 o'clock?
Thank you once again. Mr. Coates, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon, Dr. Stanton.
I like having time to eat before I have to come to these meetings, and at 6 it would be really tight.
Okay.
I know the council moved their meetings to 6, but theirs tend to go on a lot longer than ours do generally. But what does everyone else think?
Either way is okay.
Doesn't matter.
Makes no difference to me. Just since you're sitting in the chair tonight, I'll agree with you.
Okay. I always like being agreed with, so thank you for that.
And so far, we have no agenda items for the September meeting.
Okay.
The deadline has passed, so the only thing that could be on there was a report from staff or something. Does anybody,
We're not showing up just for that.
We like you, Jamie,
but
but
not that much?
like you that
Not at
much.
6 or 7? So if you would like, we don't have anything on the agenda for September.
So we don't want to have a community forum or anything? No one has any topics that we're wild to discuss? Would have been super nice to talk gross receipts tax tonight if we thought about it. That would have been a fun one. But, yeah, we didn't, so here we are.
Okay. So would you like to cancel the September
And
meeting?
that's what I'm hearing from everyone up here. Okay. We get a month off in September.
Yes. That is it for me. Jim, do you have anything?
I have nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reports from commission. Okay, wow, that was easy. I always have to say something, so I'll say that gross receipts tax in special election, the ballots are out now, and I know you've probably heard about it all over the place, but there are 5 pretty important projects that the county, the town, and the university have committed to do should that tax pass. And so the deadline to have that back into the county building is 7 p.m. on the 19th of this month. And so whether you're for it or against it, I hope you'll take the time to educate yourself and vote and get that ballot in by the deadline so that we can move forward as a community. So those are my 2 cents. Last chance? Everybody good? All right, we've got community input. You want to say something about the SOTO presentation on Thursday?
Or the one on Boston Hill, or the one on the Soco?
Well, I was thinking about the Thursday presentation about the renovations where they're going to present the plans and everything.
Oh, no, I don't have really any information on it.
Okay. I believe that's correct. 6 o'clock at the Silco Theater. That's this Thursday, which is the what? That's the 8th. That's right. They'll be presenting their proposed plans for the renovation of the Silco, which I'm really excited to see, and should be very enlightening and definitely a big milestone for downtown. So hope folks turn out for that. All right.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.